Okay, it is 6:02, and I would like to call the meeting to order. And I would like everyone to please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We do have one board member via Zoom, that is Candace Fry. Hope Drive Now and Rooster Grove are absent this evening. We'll move on to the approval of the minutes, both public and non-public, of the September 28th of 2021.
Make a motion, we approve minutes, public and non-public, of September 28th, 2021.
I'll second. Kathleen, a second, thank you. Do I have any corrections, any comments? I did not find anything. And can you just keep an eye on Candace if she is something, sure? I don't have it on the computer today.
I didn't have any.
If there isn't anything further, Candace, can you hear us? I have to do a roll call vote for her. Okay.
Yeah.
Except right now, she's listed as just a regular member of the public, not as a participant. I don't know if you
That's
can
promoter.
adjust her to that.
Yes.
We're promoting.
I'm not logged in as a host. So we can do it from. Loud to talk.
There we go, okay. Hey, there's Candace.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
All right, Candace, we're looking at the meeting minutes from September the 28th meeting, both public and non-public. Did you have any comments, corrections, or anything to do with them?
Nope, it looks good to me.
All right, so seeing we do have one remote, we'll do a roll call vote. Okay. Tim Josephson?
Aye.
Danielle Thompson?
Yes.
Kathleen Cece?
Yes.
And Candace Fry?
Aye.
And Cookie Heber is an aye. So that's 5 in the affirmative. Okay, I'll open up the first public comment for tonight. Do we have anybody participating? Good. Continuing business, Wellness Committee, we met on September the 30th. And, oh, Daniel.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to go by the minutes that are in the meeting because I arrived a bit late. But as you can see, we didn't really talk much about lead poisoning. I think we have still plans for a presentation at a future board meeting during the presentation slots. Food pantry update, the New Hampshire Tackles Hunger collection that we had during homecoming had collected 355 pounds of food, and that's going well. No food service update, and as far as diabetes, there's a diabetes app that we're working on gaining access to, and no COVID. There were no COVID cases reported that day, and we're still working on the vaccines. American Heart Association provided some training resources that were web-based that we shared out, and we talked a bit about not being able to have COVID vaccinations at homecoming, but there are other locations in the community where COVID vaccinations are still available, and that flu vaccines are also available. And those have been, I think, shared out, and there'll be more information about the school-based vaccination clinics. So our next meeting will be on December 7th. Any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Budget Committee, we met on Monday, October 4th. We went over the Canaan Elementary and the Enfield Village School budgets. We had some questions in regards to, the Budget Committee had some questions in regards to the projects that are being considered within the budget at Enfield Village School. They feel that it would be more appropriate to see them in the CIP. So those numbers are being pulled out, and Rob will be bringing in a current capital reserve account, CIP plan, and what it would look like to have those pieces done within the CIP or as they stand within the budget right now. But that was the biggest concern overall. And we have our next meeting, which is Monday, and that'll be for the IRS budget. And that budget should be ready this week, either Thursday or Friday for Rob. Any questions? Finance and facilities, we met on the 6th. Okay, so we talked about the CIP, this is what I just talked about, and there is available for the air handlers and the air purifiers that we're looking for in the ESSER Fund 3. The quote came in at 2.3 million, and the ESSER funds only allows up to 1.88 million for these improvements. So Rob is working on that to see what direction we need to go in for that to make sure that those projects would be complete. Nothing to do with the audit budget. We met with the 2 elementary schools and they're on schedule for the budget meetings. Corrado, we postponed the driveway sealing at Enfield Village School. The company that was providing the service is running behind schedule. So this project will now be probably completed towards the end of June once school is out. Preparing the heating system so we can start them towards the end of the week. Working on running systems remotely, and Corrado said it was going well. And Corrado was also working closely with Rob for each of the buildings for the budget preparations. He had some absences. Poor Corrado was frustrated because he's dealing with some personnel issues and absences due to hunting season. He doesn't quite get into the hunting season, yeah, but he's getting by. So now he's scheduling to meet and we're planning for the snow removal. And he has to keep our neighbors in mind because we had a few problems last year in the little parking lot. And hopefully he's completing all his outside jobs before the snow flies. The Route 4 intersection was discussed. Some of the ideas that were tossed out were right turn only. Possibly have an officer directing in the morning. Vendor stated that Officer Button is currently doing this as part of his assignment, and traffic seems to be moving slower. Have a police officer write tickets to slow the violators down. Have better school zone lighting. A parent survey, and a traffic monitor, have a traffic study done. And Rob was going to be checking into a few of those options, and that way there, we have a better discussion on here at the board. Contracted services. So far, cafe services are running smooth. Said that they have a couple of days they need to prepare bag lunches due to some staff absences. Transportation. A new driver started this week, allowing for one of the doubled up routes to be split, which reduces crowding and leaves us with just 2 doubled up buses. And the length of time students are on the bus. He said another driver is expected to be ready in the beginning of November. And driver's ed, backlog of students is improving because now they were allowed to have 2 students in the cars versus what we could only have 1 last year because of the COVID. There was no concerns with the manifest, no policies. And the next meeting is November 3rd here at CPL, actually, at 1 o'clock. Kathleen?
When I first read about the Route 4 section and I saw it was tossed out, I thought it was eliminated until I got down to the bottom. So you may want to say that stuff instead of tossed out.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah. I was like, what? No, guess not.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll make a note to Martha. Thank you.
I just have one question, really. I guess it's facilities in terms of parking. And can we do a better job communicating to other visiting schools that their buses should be in the bus loop as opposed to the IRS parking lot? Now, twice in the last week I've been here, and there's been 2 different school district buses parked in either the high school parking lot or the IRS parking lot. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, I know it's just like one of those things the driver just does whatever. And then this afternoon, the bus was back all the way up into the back through the IRS parking lot to pick up kids. And so.
I saw that,
Yeah.
yeah,
So-
and then it's much easier for the kids to get on the sidewalk and just get loaded right over the loop, so.
I mean, I don't know if we need to be able to figure signs of all visiting buses. I know we have one, but like, I don't know how we reiterate that with visiting schools. Just a,
Well, it would be Rodney.
yeah,
Rodney and Todd, yep.
yeah,
You know,
just a
just-
reiteration.
Yep.
It was 11 and here.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on finance and facilities? Okay, moving on to the communications committee of 10:07.
I'd like to table that for next week, just because the meeting was only on Thursday.
Yeah.
And with the holiday, we don't have the minutes completed, so.
You still-
That'd be great.
Superintendent's report, Amanda?
You do have my written report in your packet. I wanted to thank everyone that made homecoming a great success for our kids. I know Mr. Toole spent all night Friday night and all day Saturday. I know also Mr. Brown was also here all day Friday night, or all Friday night and all day Saturday. I was here all Friday night and a good portion of Saturday until I had to leave to go to see the award ceremony for Linda Landry. For those people that didn't know, Linda Landry was awarded the Alumni Award from Plymouth State University. She's taught for more than 50 years, and they felt that she had won, or was deserving of the Community Service Award. So that was a very nice ceremony that took place on the Saturday afternoon on the 2nd. So that was very nice. It was nice to have homecoming back and to be able to celebrate that as a group. So that was a very nice thing. We continue to see the positive COVID cases decline in our schools. They have not gone away totally, but we are seeing a decline in those cases, and I'm thankful that the community is choosing to keep their kids home when they're sick and to go get tested. So that's very, very good. I appreciate the community's support with that. And just once again, yes, on the 4th, we were able to split up one of the combined bus routes, and hopefully we'll be able to do that to the other route, and possibly by the beginning of November, I think the date was changed to that. So the bus company does continue to make an effort into getting us drivers and to splitting up some of those routes that we know are a little bit longer and a little bit fuller than some of our other routes.
Questions for Linda?
Homecoming was great. Thanks to
Great.
everyone that was working at that. That was a blast, and congrats to the kids for putting on a good homecoming. So,
Very nice.
yeah.
It was very well attended.
Yeah, it was really good.
Okay, next up is our business administrator's report, and that's Robert.
Thank you. You have my written report. So far, we're in budget season, so we are having discussions with each of the schools. We're right on schedule with our budget committee meetings and our discussions with each of the schools. We're going to expect just a slight increase due to some salary negotiations for support staff, and also the cost of supplies and utilities as supplies. In fact, I think the last board meeting we had, we were waiting for some final price bids. I mean, I had gotten some bids on some energy contracts. We were waiting until what the market price was the next morning. Things came in pretty well, maybe a couple cents higher. So we've secured the contract, and even the propane contract came in lower than the next competitive bid. So I think we did rather well there. So I haven't had a final bid for energy from Standard Power, but I did speak to our rep, and he says try to budget for 10 cents per kilowatt hour, up from 7.5 last year. He is anticipating that's probably going to be the target price for the season. He already knows of another supplier that is locked into 14 cents. So I think we're going to hopefully come in less than that. And so for the ESSER 3 grant projects from the 3 schools, we met with our owner rep, Keith Ford, and we're at the stage, the big assessment we got and the final price of the 2.2 million, 2.3 million is pretty much a very generous rounding of what the entire project would cost. So we did meet with Keith again, and we're going to prioritize certain aspects of the project, and he's going to move forward with timelines with contractors and seeking out bids to get a more accurate price that we can expect. That's about it. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions for Ralph? Candace, you all set?
For me, thank you.
Okay. Don't want us to forget you up there, we land. All right, so. Okay, so educational funding in New Hampshire, nothing, okay. Public comment response update, Amanda?
I have nothing.
And bus routes and driver update, which you basically just touched upon. I don't think there's anything further, Rob?
No.
Okay. Okay. Next on the new business is a student resource officer, SRO, and an update on that. We brought this back tonight just because we have been getting a little bit of a public hoopla, and we wanted to be sure that we had all the information that we could give to the public and have it stated in the minutes what we feel could be a good plan to be able to help us out.
Mind if I sit up there just so I can be central and kind of
No,
use
that's
the
fine.
table? So I guess that was my first question as to, I got a notice that they wanted us to appear, or me to appear for this meeting. Not really got a lot of to-whys, except the fact that they wanted to, the only thing that I was told, Amanda gave me a heads up that you guys are looking to know what the SRO does on a daily basis, I guess. And if that's it, or if there's more to it, I guess I came prepared for some things, but I don't know what you want, so I guess I'm looking for you for some guidance of what you want me to
I
touch.
think an overview of what is expected of the SRO, and a day, however you want to, word it. I mean, you've got your presence and everything here, but I guess just for the public to understand where we're coming from when you're here and try to understand everyone's on the same page.
Sure.
Okay.
So, for those of you who don't know me, Chief Frank with the Canaan Police Department. I've been the police chief there since 2006. Been employed with the Canaan PD since 1995, and I was actually the school resource officer in 2003. Got a lot of experience with this, so I kind of got the ins and outs of it. I got Officer Button here today. Obviously, he's been the SRO since 2004. I believe is when you took over for me, right?
I started my first stint as the SRO was in 2002 for a year, and then I took over again in winter of 2013.
So I brought Officer Button to talk about his daily routine. He keeps a record of that and what he does throughout the day. I have a presentation for you that I can read to you and go over if you'd like, and you can do that, and then I can turn the floor over to Officer Button to tell you exactly what he does. I know that in today's climate, there's a lot of different things going on about law enforcement and school resource officers, and people have their different opinions on what happens in different parts of the country and even here. Some people have these false truths in their head that they think that the SRO is out to arrest every kid and make life miserable for everybody, and that's just not the case, especially here in Canaan. We've had an SRO program since, I think, 1999. We've had one of the longest SRO programs in the state, if not one of the longest in the country. We adopted this right pretty quickly when I was here in '95, and we started talking about this, and as soon as we got able to do that, we instituted it. And it's been an amazing program, I think, in my opinion, ever since. Over the last 4 years that I went back, because I could, the data is the data, but the SRO handles hundreds of calls in that time frame, and there's pages and pages and pages of documents. I think there's 183 pages of calls that in the last 4 years of stuff that he has documented just for reasons that we would document stuff. So in other words, if a student comes in because, they want to talk about a parking issue, he's not going to document that in the calls for service. That's a school issue, he deals with that, or whatever, and he'll talk more about that. But the calls for service he documents are, assaults and dealing with crimes and civil issues, domestic issues, those sort of things, teaching classes. He teaches driver's ed sometimes, he teaches in classes, he does all that stuff. There's a lot that he does, and we'll get into that. But so, the fact that there's hundreds of calls, and we'll get into a little more of that, but, he deals with the drug offenses, tobacco offenses, fights, pornography issues. We have a lot of issues where kids are sending photos back and forth inappropriately that shouldn't be done, and we have to deal with that. Also harassment issues, both in person and on the phone. This is a microcosm of a city, and it's just, we deal with all the same issues here as we do out there, just a little more drama usually involved because of the age of the victims and the suspects. So there's a lot of stuff goes on, phone and, computer, all that kind of stuff. Deals with bullying, deals with parking issues, civil issues, like I said, arguments, stalking issues between boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever the case may be. Assaults, any accidents that happen here at the school, he deals with that. Anything pretty much on the grounds of the school and out front, he usually does those as well. Cyber crimes, including when the school got hacked a few years back, Matt was instrumental in working on that and figuring out, helping who did it, and we figured that out and took care of that issue. We've dealt with illegal tattooing, and we deal with out-of-control kids that are here. Restraining order violations, when we all know kids have restraining orders against others, and that turns into issues. And working that out with the court so that both kids can still attend and get their education, and we make it work. And Matt's very instrumental in making that happen here on campus. Also, he deals with assaults on staff. We've had that. Threats to staff, whether in person or via computer, however that works out. Obviously, any unwanted person or undocumented person on campus, Matt takes care of that issue as well. He also deals with any suicidal kids we have, unfortunately. Some truancy issues. If there's a kid not here, Matt often gets sent to the house to go find out, hey, why aren't you at school? What's going on? Or go get the kid and bring him back to school. Any of the hate crimes, such as things being painted on the walls, whether it's gender-based or race or religion or whatever the case may be. And these are all things that we've dealt with here in the last few years, so this is the stuff I'm touching on. Any kids that are missing and so on and so forth. Again, in the last 4 years, I have 188 pages, and I can't release these to you, but this is what it looks like, and every one of those is a documented call. There's 188 pages of those. Of stuff that he's documented in the last 4 years. So there's a lot on there. But that doesn't include, half or 75% of what he does. That's just the stuff that he documents that he has to deal with. The rest of the stuff, he'll tell you what he deals with. I can tell you, sit here and talk all day, but he's the guy that can tell you the kids that come into his office, the people he helps, and, all that kind of stuff that he does. In the past, we've had kids threaten to shoot up the school. We've had a couple that were threatened via the computer on Zoom classes, which is something we never thought we'd have to deal with. But Matt's always one of the first ones, if I get notified or somebody else, he's always the first one we call because he's here, he gets here early, make sure we make sure that this campus is safe as best we can. And Matt will be here, and and we dealt with that a few times. Hopefully, we never have to deal with it again. But again, that's kind of where we're at. All the other stuff that he does throughout the day, crisis team, he's on that, the behavioral stuff, school safety meetings, Matt's fully involved in all that stuff. And again, he can speak to all that stuff that he does better than I can. Last year, I talked to the budget committee about this very subject because they wanted to know what they were getting. And so I kind of gave them a presentation as well. And again, there was a lot of issues of, this cops in there just to arrest kids and cause problems and all this. And that's just simply not the case. Over the past, since 2018, which is the last 4 years, we've had a total of 13 arrests at the school. In 2018, there was 1 for simple assault, 3 for tobacco, 3 for drugs. 18, there was 2 for drugs, 1 for alcohol, 1 for tobacco and sexual assault that occurred in 2020, and another drug arrest this year. Out of those, 2, 3, 4, 5 went to diversion, and the other 8 went to court. Now, I know, so some people say, well, that's 8 kids that got sent to court. Well, we don't send the kids to court for their first offense generally. We either put them through a diversion process or we let the school handle it. And so if they're going to court, there's a reason for it. Either, the AFSA, which is aggravated felonious sexual assault, that's a serious deal, right? We can't divert that. That has to go to court because you have a victim. Same with the assault. Sometimes there's a victim, there's restitution, there's stuff you have to do. There's simply sometimes it cannot be avoided. So out of the hundreds of dealings, thousands of dealings that we have with kids, that's how many arrests we've had over the past 4 years. It's not out of control. It's very limited. And I think that speaks volumes to what we try to accomplish here. We're not here to arrest kids. We're not here to hold, write kids tickets or anything else. We're here to fix behavior so that when they turn 18 and they grow, we don't have to deal with it. One of the biggest things that Matt offers here in the school resource officer program, whether it's him or anybody else, is the rapport we get with the kids. Officer Button's here most of the time in this building because this is generally where the stuff is. But he spends a lot of time at the IRS school as well. He also spends time at the Canaan Elementary. Unfortunately, he doesn't get to go to the Enfield school. That's a different subject, but the 3 schools that he does hit, he spends time with dealing with the kids, talking to the kids, having lunch with the kids, building that rapport. So, we've solved hundreds of crimes of different things, and you can't put a number on how many times you've helped a kid by telling them, sitting down with them and just talking them through something that they can do because they know Matt and they've approached him, or with any SRO that we have. I can tell you numerous stories of numerous kids that have gone here that I've dealt with later on the years that I didn't even remember, but have come up to me just in my short tenure and said, hey, I want to thank you for helping me. I was a jerk, or I did this and I did that, and you guys held me accountable, and that's what I needed, and I really appreciate it. And I've seen, not here, but a guy was telling me that he was an SRO and there was a deadly situation where the guy had a gun and he wanted to shoot people with it. And this, again, wasn't here. But the guy was down and determined he wasn't going to give up. This officer went in and was like, hey, you remember me? And the guy goes, yeah, you were my SRO. And they got to talking and he gave up. And it ended peacefully, which was what everybody wanted. And so I think that, again, you can't put a number on the rapport that the officer makes with these kids, but it's just phenomenal how this works. And again, kids feel good, I think, to approach us and talk about whatever. And we've had a lot of people that we've got into law enforcement, military, fire, EMS, and that helps them through all that, guides them to where they need to be. He does he's not a guidance counselor, but he does help them a lot. He gets them through there. So, that's the big things about the day. Obviously, we've had gun issues here in the school. We've had kids bring guns to school. When I was the SRO, one kid brought a gun to the school, so I dealt with that firsthand. I know there's some grumblings about whether we should have an SRO or should not. And I have to tell you that it's like driving a car without insurance. In today's day and age, if you don't have an SRO, you're putting your kids at risk. And that's my feeling, and I really honestly, truly believe that. And I don't know that it's, you know, everybody says kids are our most precious commodity, and I do believe that. And without having an SRO, I think that if something were to ever happen, the insurance money that we pay, which is every year for an officer to be here and do all this other stuff, you're getting that as a bonus to somebody to be here in case something does happen. You know, I've heard grumblings of hiring part-time or an uncertified person as a school security. Well, they can't carry guns. It's by law they can't. The only ones that can is us. And, you know, the only people that, you know, it's a proven fact. Generally, the only thing that stops a school shooting is another person with a gun. Whether it's us showing up 10 minutes down the road or an officer being here at the school, it doesn't end until that happens generally. Not all the time, but that's generally the statistics. So we need to make sure that we keep that into account. You know, and I've talked to a lot of the administrators here, all of them actually, at one point or another, through Matt or through Amanda, including Amanda. You know, not the teachers themselves, but all the administrators I've spoken to, and they are fully supportive of this program in every school. A lot of them have said they wouldn't know what to do without it. You know, Matt sits in on stuff and makes sure that as an administrator of a school, you got a lot going on in your head, you got a lot of things to deal with. You may not know the laws of what you need to report, what you need to do, and how you need to handle it. With Matt being here, he sits in on those meetings, he takes care of that. And we have actually said, hey, has this been done or not been done? And they're like, no, it hasn't. Crap, we should do that. And save the school district from being sued. No, it's just another thing that we provide. So that's kind of the way that's kind of an overview of the stuff. I will let Matt kind of tell you what he does day to day and all that stuff. And then if we have any questions to open up to the floor.
Thank you.
So I think most of you know me. For those that don't, my name's Matt Bunton. I've been a police officer. I was actually a graduate of Mascoma in 1990. I grew up in Canaan. I've been here my entire life. Been a police officer in the town of Canaan since January of 2000. So 21 years, going into the 22nd year of law enforcement here in the town of Canaan. Prior to that, I was also a small firefighter. Started as a senior in high school and did that for 25 years before I finally decided I kind of had enough of that. So I've been in emergency services for better than half of my adult life. During the course of the day here, it can certainly run the gamut of what I'm going to do. Chief alluded to a lot of the things that happen. Law enforcement, I always kind of joke and say it's kind of like Christmas. You never know what you're going to get. So, and in a school, that is absolutely true. But I kind of just typed out a list of, these are other duties that I would perform probably at least once during the course of the week. So we have a forensics program here at the high school. I instruct in that. When it comes to they're just starting their latent fingerprint unit, I work as our crime scene technician for the Canaan Police Department, taking some pretty intense schools on processing crime scenes, lifting latent prints, covering them from paper using anhydrous spray or iodine crystals. So it's nice to be able to have firsthand experience to go in and show that to the kids. I talk about a lot of local cases. I think one of the best examples of that, a good forensics case along with just good old gumshoe police work was the Xantop murders in Hanover. Happened 15 miles from here. I worked for the Hanover Police Department for a couple of years and talked to the guys that worked that case. I've seen evidence from that case. I was able to find a good video where they reenacted that whole thing, and I was able to talk to the kids about it and explain what was going on and why they did what they did. And so you can bring sort of that local knowledge to them. I also teach in the law and civics classes when they talk about the Constitution, they get into search and seizure and those types of things, like, and what it's, what it's really like on the street. What can we do? What can't we do? And the kids are great about asking questions. They have a million questions about this sort of stuff, and I'm happy to answer any and all of that. Like Chief said, I will teach in driver's ed. I'll talk with Kelly Green. She has me come in generally at the end of each class, when they're finishing up. She has a couple sets of drum calls. We'll run the kids through field sobriety tests so they can see what that looks like. I talk to them about traffic laws. What's taught in driver's ed is not necessarily what the laws of the state of New Hampshire are. So to educate them on that, that's a pretty broad scope, but to kind of drill it down to, these are the New Hampshire RSAs, and this is what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. One of the other things, the science is biology, and now the earth science. I have, for about a year, gone back into firefighting, back into wildland firefighting with the United States Forest Service. So I talk about fire ecology, and the importance of, we all watch California pretty much burn off the map every year, but fire is it's important, and to teach the kids about, why is this important? In biology, in the springtime, I talk about maple sugaring. My dad and I have a sugaring operation, and to teach them, it's a lot more than just dumping sap in a pan and crossing your fingers hoping it comes out right. There's a lot of science behind that. I taught in the wood shop prior to becoming a police officer. I was a cabinet maker for 13 years. I built reproduction shaker furniture and architectural millwork. So I know my way around the shop a little bit. And I'm always happy to go in. Dave Shin will ask questions. I can, kind of guide him along. I'm happy to do that. We talked about homecoming a little while ago. For the last 8 years, I've helped to supervise the construction of the bonfire. This year, we had some issues with some paint on pallets. I was the liaison between the fire chief and the parents who had gotten the pallets and made sure that these things were going to be okay. So I spent a lot of time emailing back and forth and actually physically checking them myself and contacting Bill Bellion and saying, I think we're good to go. A lot of times we'll assist our administration or get calls from the superintendent. Why did the alarm go off last night at midnight? Well, it's really easy. I can look at our dispatch log. I can pull that up and look. I'll have that answer for you in 5 minutes. They just walked to my office and called me. So I can tell that. I handle motor vehicle unlocks for the kids. They come in, they say, and that's typically, that'll be a call for service. But kids, staff members lock their keys in their cars. The chief said motor vehicle accidents. A lot of informal counseling. Kids come into me. I had a child come into me a few weeks ago and was extremely upset about a new building that was being built in town. She hasn't spoken with her father and was just upset about it, wanted to vent about it, felt comfortable coming to me. Career counseling. Again, extremely informal, but I have some background in some other arenas. We have a couple of kids that are interested. I had a kid come to me and say, I want to be a wildland firefighter. I want to be on a hotshot crew. I said, well, you know what? Here's what you need to do. I can help you with that. I happen to know some people. Law enforcement. People that work for the Attorney General's Drug Task Force. We have people that are police officers in Manchester, New Hampshire. We have, people that are career firefighters. We have a lot of people that have done a lot of things that over the years I've had contact with them and talked to them about this sort of stuff. So I feel like that's a pretty valuable thing to have, especially if you can have someone that has a fairly well-rounded background. It also I think, shows the kids that we're human. You know, we have other interests. I don't go home and sleep in this blue suit, you know, like at the end of each school year, the very beginning of the summer, the New Hampshire Chiefs of Police Association hosts a Cadet Academy. Chief Frank is one of the advisors there. So it gives kids kind of a taste of what it's like to go through a week-long police academy. If they are interested in getting into the field of law enforcement, I'm sort of the ambassador here for the kids that are going to go into the basic academy. I talk to them about it. I have a couple of videos that I show them. I help to get their paperwork squared away. I set up interviews with the chief, you know, so that he can give them the blessing before they go. And every year when they come back, they get lots and lots of great stories. Last year, we had 2 people go, and they absolutely loved it. Last year, I also was able to facilitate one of our students going into the National Youth Conservation Corps program. So she spent the summer working for the U.S. Forest Service. I was asked by my fire management officer to circulate that information here because they never get kids from that school. I talked to the district ranger who's in charge of this program, and he said, "We always forget about you guys. You're right over the mountain, and we don't even think about you." So, so she got to spend a pretty amazing summer. And the first day of school, she could not tell me enough about how much she enjoyed that. You know, I'll talk with the administration in you know, the 3 buildings that, you know, are within our purview about truancy issues, or, you know, kids that have been out, and, you know, how many absences do they have? And, well, you know, we need to make it to, there's a certain threshold that we need to meet before we, you know, obviously the district has thresholds that they meet, and they send letters, and if they get no response from that, there's a certain threshold we need to meet before we contact DCYF. So, you know, are we there or are we not there? And so that's something that we look at. Student transports. Somebody misses a bus, or they're truant, or somebody gets suspended during the day and they need to get home. Mom is home but doesn't have a car. We will transport them. I will take care of that. Last year during remote learning, I spent a lot of time running around, checking in on kids. You know, so-and-so hasn't logged in for the last 10 days. He's remote, hasn't logged in. So I would go to the house or make, you know, a quick, easy contact to another local agency, whether it be Grafton or Enfield, and say, "Hey, can you do me a favor and run over and take a look and see if we can talk to this person?" I delivered school books, textbooks. You know, we had a pile of textbooks on the desk in the front office that people were supposed to come in and pick up, and they hadn't. So we know that things are not getting done. I'm happy to go deliver those. And while I'm there, just check in and make sure everything's okay. You know, 90% of the time, mom and dad were quite surprised that, you know, their son or daughter had not been logging in as they told them that they were. You know, I'll do welfare checks on students that have been absent for extended periods of time. You know, parents just no call, no show, and we get a little worried about it, especially the younger kids, you know, the elementary school kids. That's kind of an issue. So, you know, I spend a lot of time doing that. I'm a liaison between, obviously, the police department and the communities, social service agencies, DCYF. Also the school district's court liaison. I work pretty extensively with him, keeping him apprised of potential cases that are coming up. He will also do the same with me, saying, you know, this is a DCYF case, this is a police case from a different town. So we know that sort of thing. Also, juvenile probation and parole officers. Fortunately, we don't have a lot of that going on currently, but I'm a contact for them. And there are a few cases, not many, but the kids do have GPPOs, and they will occasionally reach out to me and say, "Hey, how is so-and-so doing, Steve? You know, what are things looking like for him in school?" You know, I will advise, a lot of times I'll get, we have protective orders or parenting plans or child custody agreements that, you know, the front office will get a copy of that, and they don't really understand what's contained within that document. The next call will be to me. to say, can you please interpret this for us, to have us look at it. So, so I spend I wouldn't say a lot of time, but that's certainly something that I've done numerous times over the last 8 years. And then the last one that I wrote was Teachable Moments, where you have a student that does something that, has the potential to go really wrong. And to explain to them that those actions, were you outside of these four walls, would have a much, much different result. And it's not, it's not to say that you're not in trouble with me, but I need to explain to you what the ramifications of that would be as an adult. And that's, to me, that's really what it's about, is educating. I think that's obviously my primary function and focus here is the safety of the students and the staff in these buildings. Second to that, I believe, is educating and building a rapport. And I think they all sort of weigh in equally. So it's not necessarily an easy job to quantify, because you don't know. I mean, yes, we could put up lots of numbers. I keep a notebook on my desk, and I jot down, during the course of the day, things that I do that are not wouldn't necessarily be classified as a call for service. But it's still something that I did. And I may have to refer back to that later on at some point and say, oh, yeah, I remember on this day, so-and-so told me X, Y, and Z. But again, I don't know that it's necessarily an easy thing to quantify everything that is done during the course of the day, or how many people that you have an effect on, I have had people approach me the same as the chief, years later, and say, hey, thank you for doing what you did. That was, that helped me get my act together. So that's kind of my day in a nutshell.
So in closing, then, open it up, obviously you can see that the officer in the school is not just here as a police officer, is not here to just discipline kids, and, contrary to what some people might think and understand. We do have a school, NMOU, you signed it, I don't know if the rest of you are probably familiar with it. And what that does too, is that helps us share information as a group back and forth. And, there's a lot of times when we deal with kids at night after school hours, and not just kids, their families. And so Matt gets a heads up early and says, hey, just so you know, little Johnny may be upset today when he comes to school. He's going to have a rough day. You might want to notify the staff. And Matt does that. And so that the counselors or whoever needs to be aware has that kid on their radar, so that if he starts spiraling, we can get him under control and fix that. That's a thing that we do openly, talk back and forth because of this MOU. And Matt works hand in hand with the school, and I can tell you that, if the school needs anything, whether it's a teacher, whether it's an administrator, whether it's Amanda, all she's got to do is call Matt, and I've told Matt 100 times, do whatever you can do to help get it done, as long as it's within our purview, right? I mean, I can't tell them to do something it's not. But we'll help. That's what our goal is to work together with the schools to make sure that everybody's good, everybody's safe, and stays within the limits. And so that's kind of what we do, and that's why we're here. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I do. One of the strongest things that as board member is our communication with the community and the students. And I was wondering, how familiar are you and your staff with our student handbooks and the basic policies that overlap with your coverage and the student problems that we have here.
So, yeah, I will defer that to Officer Button. I personally don't sit down and read your student handbook. I mean, I kind of got adjusted to what it says because I was here, and I worked here, so I kind of know, but Matt is intimately familiar with that, and
I get current copies every year. Then in the desk, I don't. I will look at them if I am involved. Sometimes the administrators will confer with me and say, well, what do you think? And I will say to them, I think you should refer to how the progressive disciplines. But I do keep current copies of both the high school.
And I can assure you that if we deal with a kid at night, Matt gets a lot of phone calls because my officers, the rest of them, including me, if I deal with some kid, who knows them better than him, right? He knows all the kids, he deals with them every day. He knows them by name, he knows who they hang out with, he knows where they hang out, all that stuff. We always call him and say, hey, we're dealing with this, what can you tell me? Matt's a wealth of information that helps us do our job to make sure that we mitigate the situation properly. And he has the student handbook, he knows it, so that's, I guess, if that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
I think that one of the things that has come up in some of the community conversations that, or questions that have come from the community to us.
Sure.
Have to do with, as was mentioned earlier in the finance facilities meeting minutes, is the intersection with Route 4. And so I know that that has been kind of a headache for everyone. And it was mentioned in those minutes that your time has been shifted a little bit and you have more of a presence on that. I wondered if you could just give us an update on that and kind of from your perspective, how's that going? And is there a reason to either escalate that or pull back on that or?
So again, this comes back to people online saying what they want to say and what they take what they think they know and they throw it out there for everybody to see. And they really don't know the facts. And there's one in particular that has done that. And unfortunately, she doesn't have the facts that she needs. I met 2 years ago. It was 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was 2 years ago, you met with Devin Ford.
So I think it was the spring of 20, so it was over a year, it was a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
I met with the engineers out here. They called me and said, hey, we're coming out, we want to do this. So I went out to that meeting. It was a cold, kind of rainy-ish day, and we stood out there and we looked at the intersections and we talked a lot about it. And I gave them what I thought the problem was. So, and a lot of people go, again, this one in particular thinks it's a speed issue. It's not a speed issue. I will say that in public. I will defend that till the cows come home. It is not a speeding issue. The cars, are they going 25? No, they're probably doing 30. But again, it's a give and take thing. If we stopped every car for doing 26 over, we'd never get to do anything else. The problem is that people are trying to rush to come out of that school parking lot and turn left. Every time that's what the accident is, when they're turning left out of the high school. It's not about a speeding car coming this way. It's about people not seeing them when there's a line of cars turning into the school. They don't take the time to look out around and see, make sure nothing's coming, and they pull out, and that's what causes the accident. It has nothing to do with speed, ever. Not once has anybody ever been, they were speeding, they were flying, everybody was just like, hey, they were driving, and this car pulled out and hit them. And so we've got most of them on tape. We can see how fast they're going. We know they're not traveling at high rates of speed. The issue is that the way that is designed, it is kind of a bad intersection. I have voiced that opinion to the state back when I had that meeting. And so when people got into this latest accident and, the car flipped over, and again, it's not because it was going fast. It's because of the dynamics of the vehicle and how it rolls. And when you're in an SUV or an upper car and you take the weight off and it shifts and you hit it, it causes it to roll over. Doesn't matter if you're doing 10 miles an hour or 20 miles an hour, the car is going to tip. And that's what happened. the car swerved to avoid the car coming out, and then it swerved back because there was a line of cars to turn left into the school. And just as it went to swerve back, it thought it made it and the car hit it. Well, all the weight was on the left corner because it had turned this way, which sent the car over. It wasn't a speed thing, had nothing to do with that. So the intersection, I don't feel is a speed issue. I mean, we could slow cars down a little bit. I'm not saying we can't. But they're not doing 40 through there. They're not doing 50 through there. You just can't. It's too busy in the morning. Again, I went back with the engineers and we talked about that. And so when all this happened and, the town of Canaan was getting blamed for all this stuff, and I said, look, it's not our issue. We've tried, we've given our opinion, but it's really up to the school district and in the state. And that's the truth. And I'm not trying to pass the buck on anybody to that, but it's your intersection along with the state. I can say what I want, but it's not my intersection. They've approached me and asked me what I thought. I've given them my opinions, but I can't do anymore. And they're supposed to be scheduling a meeting with you.
I haven't heard from them yet.
Right.
Nor have I.
So it's not like we're not involved. I have made recommendations, a couple things to Amanda. I've reached out to Chris Turgeon, who's the state rep, about getting some better signage, some lit signage, flashing light signage, those are things. I don't know if anybody's reached out to him, or if he's reached out to any of you folks. But I have done that, and but I'm not, so people are like, well, this is something you need to control. And I don't, I'm trying to help the best I can, but it's not my position. I know people like to blame me because I'm the chief and I have ultimate control over everything, but I don't. And so I'm trying to do what I can within the parameters of my position in the law.
So in your position as the chief right now and seeing what you just stated, if we were to get some type of updated signs, where we have the yellow flashing light, with one of those speed things like we had out here for a little while, could we get something similar to that where it's a flashing yellow light and then it tells them, well, listen, hey, you're doing 42 coming into a school zone.
Yes.
Where and how, is that our responsibility, or is that something that we have to tell the state that that's what we want?
So, Amanda, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure. So, because it's a complicated issue, but the state looks to the town to set the zones.
Okay.
But we in turn then have a contract with you folks to say that you guys are going to maintain those things and pay for those things. So the school district actually pays for those, right? But you have a contract, I think, with the town, which has a contract with the state. Is that correct?
I am not 100% sure. I'm waiting to talk to Chris Turgeon so I can find out more information about updating those signs or changing the location of those signs.
Right.
Or looking at, what exactly the state will provide for us and help us with.
Correct.
Because I'd rather not throw $50,000, $100,000, whatever those signs cost, if that's something that the state would be willing to help us
Well,
with.
yeah, I mean, I can tell you that the price of a stoplight out there is going to be probably almost $500,000.
Easy now,
Right.
right? Because it was like 360 when we did the renovation.
The price of a roundabout is probably going to be close to that. I think for under 10 grand, we can put some lit signs, flashing LED signs, speed signs with the, school. And I mentioned that and I brought that up and he seemed amenable to that and thought that could probably work. So I don't know what the process is going to, but that's where we're at so far. The other thought was to redesign the entrance into the high school. And again, that's something that you guys need to talk about, is to move that right turn lane in so we can move the stop line further out.
So if the onus is on us to get those signs and put them up and all of that, who or where could we go to be able to try to get some assistance with that?
We can help you with that. I mean, we have the signs we don't have them. We have connections, the vendors that have them and all that stuff. So, certainly Matt or I can help you with that if that's something we decide that we're going to do.
Well, I'm also thinking along not too long ago, we just had the grants that were, the money that was given to us in regards to securing our school entrances, for safety reasons and so forth. So is there something out there traffic-wise that we might be able to get within the school zone to assist us without, getting some of that?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a discussion we need to have at a different meeting probably and sit down and talk about all that stuff. But the gist of it is that, you know, the intersection, you know, there's a lot of opinions on what should happen. There's a safety issue to put an officer out there. That's a 4-lane, 5-lane place. It's not safe. I stood out there at graduation with 1 lane blocked off and almost got killed a couple times. It's just not safe to put an officer out there. Unlike, you know, and everybody compares it to the Enfield School. Well, there's only 2 lanes there. And it's, you know, it's a lot easier to control that with no roads going off it. You know, and then you know, people, before we designed this intersection, some of you may remember, the biggest complaint was, well, it takes us 20 minutes to get past the high school because they're backed all the way up to MVRSD. Well, this eliminated that. We don't have that anymore. But now the problem is we can't get out of the school. But in Enfield, they're still backed up. You know, my wife went to work the other day, they were backed up to Petromart. You know, so if you can imagine backing people up there and backing them up here, people are gonna have to leave at 6:30 to get to work on time for an 8 o'clock job. That's gonna create a lot of hate and discontent, problems of its own. So we have to, whatever we do, we have to kind of research and figure out how we wanna do it and what's best. We can't just jump to conclusions. Yeah, we put Matt out there to try to monitor it and see what's going on. You know, I don't know, we had an incident where some lady jumped out, started direct traffic on her own, which was totally against the law and crazy, but she did it, and we took care of that issue. You know, but people will do the crazy things. We can't stop that. We are doing the best we can with what we have. You know, it plays to the fact of, again, what's the best use of time? I don't know. Having a cruiser sit down there, or Matt being up here greeting the kids coming in, you know, I don't know. It's all stuff that we're looking into, but it's not something we can solve overnight. So I don't know if that answers your question. I know it's a long story, but but there's a lot goes into it. It's not just, you know, an accident happens, you know, they must have been speeding and we need to stop this. You know, that's not the case. There's a lot of factors that aren't public or that people may not know about, but everybody jumps on the bandwagon when they see it and come up with their own opinion, and then they run with it. So that's the hard part.
So the other lesser seen thing to me that I end up doing a lot sometimes in the morning, and I sort of try and alternate between here and there, but is drop off at Canaan Elementary. It's not always, you know, I think it's getting better and people are starting to figure that out, but we get complaints of cars going the wrong way on a one-way. I mean, you have a one-way street from 7:30 to 4:30, Monday through Friday, like, I mean, it's been that way since I can remember, but I mean, good grief, like.
And people parking on the left.
It's a mess.
Right. And
It's a mess, you know, and people
It's a
parking,
constant issue.
and so, you know, so a few mornings a week, I'll try and sit out there and monitor traffic in the morning. And obviously, when there's a marked police car sitting there, nobody's gonna do it. You know, I sat down here for 2 or 3 mornings in a row after that accident. And traffic flowed fine, and people were courteous and doing the highest speed I had, I think was, you know, 29 miles an hour. You know, and everybody they were complete angels.
Yeah.
But when you're not there, they're not gonna be like this, you know? And I had sat down here for about 20 minutes one morning, and, you know, traffic's flowing along nicely, people are waving their happy to be out there, and I happen to look up, and there's a woman standing in the intersection, directing traffic. And I said, well, where the heck did she come from? So I called it into dispatch, I drove up, I kindly asked her to step out of the road before she caused an accident or got hit. Explained to her that that was disorderly conduct for obstructing vehicular traffic. She had absolutely no authority to be doing what she was doing and could be arrested for that. So again, educated her on that and sent her on her way. I haven't since seen that happen, but you know, she informed me that she was a crossing guard, and I said, well, if you would like to, you know, maybe re-up your training and get some ANSI-approved clothing so that you can be standing out here in the middle of the road and go through the proper channels with the chief of police of the town of Canaan, we might be happy to entertain them.
So the bottom line is we're working on it. It's a process. You know, we're aware of it, but again, I don't want to sound like I'm passing the buck, but this is something the school board has and the school budget committee, I guess, and has to work out with the state on how we want to fix this intersection. Certainly, I would love to be involved in that and give my 2 cents, which I already have to the state. You know, I think an easy fix would be to move that stop line out so that people can see beyond it. And maybe move that right lane in further so it comes in so they can pull out further and see past it. That's the cheapest, maybe best way to fix that. You know, I think that would solve a lot of problems. Because the 16 feet that it's back now or so from the travel lane that's too far. It's hard. I mean, everybody's tried it probably, and it's difficult, especially when you got buses and trailers pulling in. So it's not an easy intersection.
Kathleen, did you have something?
Yes, I wanted to add that you've spoken quite a bit about signage tonight.
Yes.
And when you were here about 2 years ago, approximately around that time, we also talked a lot about signage. And there was a discussion about posting some school zone signs, like that says no tobacco, no drugs, school zone, and it was going to be done by the police department in Canaan. And it would never materialize, to my knowledge, that those signs have ever been there. And that's an important thing that we need to establish as where the boundaries are for our school zones and protect the children from the use of these not allowed substances. The other thing is that one-way sign in Canaan that says 4:30
Yes.
to 7:30 is in very tiny print, and when you're new to the area, you do not see that sign. That it says the limited hours
Sure.
one way. That's an easy fix. Go get another
Yep.
sign that's bigger and clearer,
Sure.
or just change the street to one way all the time, and then there's no
Yep.
confusion about it. But I think the time has come that we really have to get an action plan. And I think it's going to take an involvement of everyone, Canaan, Enfield Police Departments, and the school district. And I think the sooner we do it, the better things are going to be, and the safety is going to improve. I personally do not like to see a resource officer directing traffic. I think it is better served here if the resource officer is here greeting the students in the morning and doing the job that he's meant to do.
So I'll take the first one first. I apologize. I don't remember that meeting, and I don't remember us saying that we were going to put any signs up. If I did, and I apologize, I just have no recollection of that. I'm willing to revisit that if there is a need or a want. Certainly we can talk about that again. I honestly, I don't remember anything.
I believe it happened at the same time we were talking about the traffic out here at the entrance.
It's possible.
I could
I'm not
be
saying
wrong
it did
on
not.
that.
I just don't remember it all. I have no recollection of that, and I apologize if that's the case. The second issue with the one-way street is two things. One, I understand that's in very small letters, so to speak, but there is a large "Do Not Enter" sign that says "Do Not Enter." So, at worst case scenario, even if you can't read that, you should see the "Do Not Enter" and don't go down that way. Number one. Number two, I have brought it to the board, select board in Canaan, that should be either a one-way street all the time or none of the time. I argued, gave my point, and it was voted down. So I got overruled on that again. It's something I cannot control. I tried my best to make that happen so that it would fix that problem, and they didn't like it. So they chose not to do it.
I believe at one time that was possibly a petitioned
So I don't know what the answer to that is. I've tried. I understand what you're saying. I sympathize with that. And I understand that people from the area don't know that, and often, again, something we don't just go, you're getting a ticket for it. If you honestly don't know and you missed it, okay, we can talk about it. But the majority of the
tickets that I'm worried about is safety.
I understand that, but the majority of your offenders are parents that are dropping kids off at the school that go there every day. I mean, that's the truth. And so, for those people, that's not an excuse that the sign's too small. They know it's there. They're just in a hurry, just like the people trying to get out of the school. They got places to be, and they want to get out. And they don't want to wait the extra couple of minutes or go the other way. They want to make sure they can take the shortcut. it's a behavioral thing that we have to correct. And it's just being there to do it and finding the right time to get there. And that's, unfortunately, we're short-staffed. We're trying the best we can with what we have. And we'll work on it. But if you want to do that, then I suggest you talk to the school board, or the budget, or town select board, and maybe they can fix that for you. Bring that up.
I was gonna ask, when was that you previously did that? Because I think if we did it together again, try again.
That was at least probably 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay, so time's passed.
Yeah, it's been a while.
We have some more data.
Right.
Yeah, I think all together, we came from our end and you came from your end. I agree, I think some signage, like when you come around the school and like you're gonna make that turn, you
Yes.
go right. There's
There
no
is a
one-
couple.
Is there a one-way sign there?
On the opposite side of
The
the
other
street.
side? Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Points that way.
But again, but to your point, Tim,
Yeah,
that whole left side of that street
yeah,
says no parking, both sides of the signpost, up and down it, every day.
every day.
If people park there, and I have to go do, so again, the signage doesn't help. I mean, it doesn't hurt,
It's only as much as people want to read. Right?
exactly,
Right.
or obey.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So again, we'll try the best we can to make it work. Any other questions or issues on anything like that?
Candace, do you have anything? So quiet,
No, I don't. Thank you.
thank you. No, I mean, one thing that did not mention is bus drivers turn in a lot of plates to them too.
Right.
So, right, so there's a lot of, I do get a lot of that sort of stuff. You gave me one the other day.
I did.
A gentleman, and so he, and you reported that he'd gone through your yellow lights.
He was
So-
trying to.
And I said, well, there's not a statute that's, it's a yellow light is a caution light. And I said, he didn't break any laws. However, we're gonna have a discussion. So I said, look, this was reported to me. You're not in trouble. You didn't break any laws, but as a new driver, when you see that, you need to be a little more heads up, kind of your head on a swivel, as you should be regardless, and really sort of slow down and take a second look. When you see those lights come on, it doesn't mean that you have to stop, but you need to really be looking around, because I met you this morning, your yellow lights are on, and I stopped because I knew, 25 feet from there, there's kids coming out. So, but it's just one of those things. And again, it's that educational piece, like, and they don't think about that. Because they haven't seen, they don't have the experience to know what potentially happens.
I don't want to see him get it.
So,
I have a question. I guess on that note, have you guys ever done one of those things? I remember when I was in high school, they brought like a wrecked car to school. I know they did a lot more dramatic. They're like, Billy and Sally were in an accident last night. And they're like, you know, role play everything. But do you do anything like that, like in terms of, educating kids on like the dangers of like texting while driving and being distracted, and how much do you get into that with them?
So we've done, I think it was years ago, and we used to do it down here at the bottom of the hill. We'd find the most wrecked up car that we could possibly find and stick it down there right around prom season.
Yeah.
And, and talk to them about that. But I certainly do, either in just offhanded conversations with kids that have got, because the first thing they'll do when they get that shiny new piece of plastic is come down and wave it in my face. And, we'll wager on about how long it takes for them to lose that. But and I will explain to them, things happen very, very quickly. And, faster than you can imagine, your life can change. And they
Certainly, we'd be willing to teach that
Yeah.
stuff if there's a venue for it.
Yeah.
We rely on, obviously, there's a curriculum that has to be taught, and there's only so much time. So, if somebody wants to have us come in and do a presentation on that, anytime, anytime, we would do anything.
Absolutely, and we do talk about that, in driver ed, and accident reporting requirements, what are you supposed to do? We've had kids here that, they've gotten into an accident resulting in more than $1,000 in damage and left. That's, you've just committed a misdemeanor crime by doing that. But they don't know.
Leanne's got it.
Thank you, Leanne.
Thank you.
Save the day.
Save the day. So do we have any questions? Anything else for the gentleman? I appreciate you coming.
No, thanks for your time.
And I'm very happy that it's noted and it's recorded and that this discussion has happened at this level. And that we are moving forward to try to see what we can do about the intersection. That conversation is certainly not closed by any means. So once we get more functional and decide how to go about this with the state and meet and greet and see what we need to do, we'll definitely be in contact. So I appreciate both of you.
If you ever need anything, call me, email me, and,
Got it.
even if it's individual or as a board, whatever you need.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
We have our SB2 timeline.
Time already.
I know, right? Petition.
We already set our date as the 5th, February 5th, right?
Yes.
The deliberative session in the morning, yep.
And this is just a review, correct?
This is just a
Amanda? Okay.
review, yep, and so you'll notice that February 5th is the first of the two available dates. Last year somehow it fell on the second Saturday, which overlapped with the town of Canaan's deliberative session. Or last year, the year before, one of the years it did. So this is the first available Saturday, so it's the first Saturday after the last Monday. So this is the first available date that we go with.
Okay, great. Thank you. October 1st enrollments are review.
You do have the October 1st enrollments in your packet. You'll see that the total number for the high school at 336 does include some of those grade 20 high school students, so that's why that number looks a little bit different in two places. We also, if you compare these numbers to the opening day enrollments, you will see that the high school looked to be about 13 students off, and that was a clerical error. We were able to figure out why. We did not, in fact, lose 13 students in a month, but that was in fact a clerical error that has since been resolved. Canaan did lose, I think, maybe 4 or 5 students, and some of those were to homeschooling, but Leah in the budget committee could account for those students and to where they went. So other than that, the enrollment stayed approximately the same.
It was very stable, a little bit higher than last year,
Yeah.
especially when you consider like some kids may have had homeschooled last year and everything, so it's good to see those numbers bounce back up, and I think you're right, I think this is relatively stable.
We have 2 policies tonight. Both of them are for first reading. I think that's a reading. We do have multiple policies. So we have 4 policies for first reading.
Sorry, it is that time of year.
I know.
I'll make a motion that we, for first reading, policy DAF, administration of federal grant funds, policy JCA, change of class or school assignment, best interest and manifest hardship, policy JICD, student discipline and due process, and policy JLCJA, emergency plan for sports-related injuries and additional protocols for athletics participation.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay.
These are mostly like by law and very like narrow in their definition because they have to do with an updated RSA for the most part.
Yes, Tim is 100% correct. If it felt like you've seen some of these policies before, it's because you have. Most of these have just been updated within the last year or so, and Tim is 100% correct that due to changes in the RSAs, they have a need to be updated again immediately. So these policies, the policies you'll see next meeting, the policies you'll see the meeting after that, are pretty simple updates according to whatever legal changes have been made, so.
Anything else? Candace, do you have anything on the policies?
No, I don't, Cookie.
Okay, so all those in favor of the 4 policies as, yeah.
Oh,
All those in favor of the policies, 4 policies that were read by Danielle for first reading with a roll call vote. Tim Josephson,
aye.
Danielle Thompson,
Aye.
Kathleen Stacy,
Aye.
Candace Fry,
Aye.
and Cookie Hebert, aye. So they all passed for first reading, 5.
Right.
Agenda items for the next meeting.
Well, an update from the delegate assembly on Saturday.
Oh.
I'm going down there on Saturday, and
That's right.
pulling right back here, jumping. Going there for the delegate assembly, and
Yeah.
I got a football game at 2.
Oh, yeah, the pep
Pep
band.
band's got to play.
Pep band.
I gotta get over there. It's not a virtual conference either this year. They're like, no virtual, so I gotta go to Concord and then fly back.
What are we playing?
Who are we playing football?
I think it's, I want to say maybe, is it
Let's check
Franklin?
our app.
Yeah, you can check
Yeah,
the app.
We're going to Franklin.
It might be Franklin.
Bell.
Oh.
Pep band tends to be really loud,
Yes. So we're working on it.
which is fantastic. I get a lot of feedback.
Yeah.
The homecoming, people have been talking about that.
Really?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Positively?
Oh, yeah.
It is.
Good.
Yes, no, it's
Yeah, they were not bad.
definitely been very well
It
received.
it was, I mean, they were just, what took so long for us to get something like that? I was like,
The kids will love it.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that more after that, after the end of the season, maybe we'll have Amy in here.
Yeah.
oh, that would be nice.
Yeah, that would be good.
Good. Any other items?
We'll have the communications committee,
Yes.
report out. And in regards to the policies, JLCGJA, emergency plan for sports-related injuries, et cetera. That looks like the only one that's a new one.
That's a brand new one, but it's required by law.
Right,
Correct.
and I don't know if there's anything, sorry to go back, but if there's anything that we need to know about how this compares to our current, maybe it's not policy, but our protocol related to the physician meetings, as well as having athletic trainer services on site, because that has in fact been an issue, especially this year, it seems. And I know that this is more specific than just get a doctor's, get your physical, because we don't have a certain form that has to be filled out.
Right.
So just want to make sure that we're thinking ahead about how does this intersect with our existing policies related to.
Yeah, it's
uh,
correct, and it's in addition to,
Yeah.
it's not removing anything, so you won't see any withdrawals of
Yeah.
any sports-related policies.
Okay.
Anything else for the agenda? Public comment. Hi, Dan.
Just wanted, it's a quick one. Upper Valley Lake Sunapee Regional Planning might be a good resource for grants for down here. They would probably know what's available through the Safe Kids program.
That was one of my thoughts as well, so
Yeah,
it's one of my resources, but I was hoping there might be something within law enforcement that might also be able to tag along and help us out, so. It was just a question. Thank you, though, Dan.
I have a comment
Oh,
too.
sorry.
So at our last meeting, we were talking about community support with food clinics and basically getting demand sponsored in an area to encourage people to get more vaccines and stuff. So I did go ahead and I reached out to the Legion, the American Legion, Post 55. I was at their meeting, and the following night, the Cayman Lions Club had a meeting. The Legion decided to wait and see the outcome of the Lions Club meeting, and the Lions Club seemed to be very hostile. They were worried about how much money it would cost them, and why wasn't the school doing more to vaccinate the community. I tried to educate them that we vaccinate our staff and we vaccinate our students, but the problem is that these exposures that the kids are becoming positive with are community oriented. And they didn't seem to accept what I was saying. And so after about 45 minutes of questions and answers, they asked me to leave the meeting so they could vote. And a couple of days later, I got an email from the head lion, and she told me that the membership had voted not to get involved with any activities like working with the state ban or doing any flu vaccines. So that was the end of that. I responded and thanked them for their time. I don't understand it because their service is to providing health services and improving their community. So I'm not sure why there was so much hostility about getting immunizations.
Especially when the van will come for free.
Right.
Like, there's no
I told
cost
them,
whatsoever.
no cost. And then I said, if you want to put money out there in the community for advertising and things like that, that's up to you. If you want us to help get it out there on the school network, we'll be happy to do it.
Mhm.
You know, timing is the essence, and we can do all of that for you. And I honestly can tell you, there were only 3 people in the room that seemed very receptive to doing it. And the others, I just got the feeling that these are the people that will not get vaccinated. And they're not gonna do anything to help the community and protect children and, all that. It's like, it was totally, I felt very anti-vaccination that night.
Thank you for going.
Yeah,
Thank you for
thank
trying.
you. I really
That's-
appreciate that.
Oh,
And
you're
the follow-up.
welcome. Yes.
And that's, I'm sorry, that's shameful, that was the
So
reaction.
that being said, then you know that the Legion people will not move forward
Right.
without the support of the Lions Club because it's a kind of a, clicky thing.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it's something that we can continue to work with, like the Upper Valley Public Health Network, which in Massachusetts Community Health and other groups that have been part of our prior vaccine efforts, and have, currently have flu vaccine that's available in certain clinics. So hopefully we'll get some more traction on that within our community, because like I said, it's not just a school problem, for sure.
Yeah, it made my eyes open because I thought, this is a bigger problem than I thought. And it's like, you can't protect your community if there's all this ignorance about vaccines.
So thank you for
Oh,
trying.
you're welcome.
Okay, anything else?
I don't see any hands raised. I don't know if Ellen Wilbur has anything. Let me know, Ellen, raise your hand and I'll allow you to talk.
We are playing Franklin.
They're playing Franklin. All right, no hands raised, so I'll set with public comment.
Okay, then moving on to green nomination sheet, we only have one. We only do have one nomination, and that's for Ashley Cole Henry as the robotics advisor. We are going to be able to hold that co-curricular activity this year, so we are nominating her as a renewal.
Is that working with Hartford again?
That is correct.
Okay, so they're all part of that one team that
The grasshopper.
is the Grasshoppers. They've done well, very well in the past.
They have done
Good to see
very
we're getting some pitch back in there.
Nice. Okay.
I'll make a motion, we approve the nominations as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, Kathleen, thank you. No further discussion, roll call vote on the one nomination. Kim Joseph,
Aye.
Candace Fry,
Aye.
Lou Thompson. Aye. Kathleen Stacy.
Aye.
And Cookie Hebert, aye. Passes 500. All right, and do we have any non-public tonight?
We do for the matters of personnel and for reputation.
Okay.
I'll make a motion, we go into non-public, in front of RSA 91, A, colon 3, row 2, subset B.
Second.
Kim Josephson, Kathleen for the second. Kim Josephson.
Aye.
Daniel Thompson. Kathleen Stacy.
Aye.
Candace Fry.
Aye.
Aye, we are not public, we will wait for.
Customs. All right.
What's that? Thank you. All right. We have the nominations. We need to,
Yes, please.
I'll make a motion that we approve the nominations as presented in non-public.
Second.
Kathleen Stacy the second, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, Tim Josephson.
Aye.
Daniel Thompson. Aye. Kathleen Stacy.
Aye.
Candace Fry.
Aye.
Aye. And the motion carries. If there is no other business of the board, I will adjourn at 7:59. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.